Lauren Jason Pak on Instagram, probably many other social media channels. But I know of Lauren. I've watched Lauren and Jason provide some excellent exercise videos over the course of the last few years, and I've been absolutely lucky enough for Lauren to come along and have a chat about her ACL injury. So Lauren, come, welcome to the show, and thanks for having a chat.
Thank you. I'm very excited to talk about it because I wish I had more resources when I first went through it, or had known of more resources like this when I first went through it. So,
Oh, well, yeah, well, I'm grateful. Thank you. And
yeah.
I guess this is your first journey. Like this is the first injury you've had. This isn't your second rodeo. You haven't done this before. Yeah,
No, I have had plenty of injuries over the
yeah,
years. I was a gymnast growing up and we're injured all the time. So I've
yeah,
had some pretty big injuries, but never a knee and never a big like recovery period like this. Like broken bones, things like that, that just kind of you cast up and they heal and
yeah,
there's not a ton of rehab to do. But yeah,
yeah.
nothing even
Nothing
close
like,
to this.
yeah. And was it, I guess, without going back to the moment just yet, was it surprising, like to you, like for you, like you've been around, you're a trainer, you've probably managed a few ACLs in the past yourself and some athletes, then you probably have got this maybe bias towards a young male or female. Not saying you're old by any means, but it's usually a teenager or a person in their 20s. It's not historically it's not seen as an injury that happens to 30, 40, 50 year olds, but I'm seeing a lot more of it happen lately. Like what was your kind of, yeah, when you kind of got the diagnosis or when the event happened, were you actually surprised as like what's going on?
Well, I was shocked it happened to me at that time because I was actually in the best shape of my life
Yeah,
at that time. Even though I am on the older side, I'm 38. I had never trained harder. I had never, and I've always been very aware of what sort of the warning signs are for a classic ACL tear. And so
yeah,
I'm train my glutes hard, train my hamstrings hard, make sure that I'm doing kind of all the quote unquote right things in the gym
yeah,
that should have, in theory,
yeah,
prevented this from happening.
yeah,
So yeah, that part of it was super shocking to me. And
yeah,
I thought it was funny when I went to my orthopedic surgeon for the first time, he said the same thing as you said. This
mm,
isn't very common to see in someone your age. And my response was, it's probably not very common for women my age to be playing a sport like flag football. And so I do think that people are
yeah.
doing athletic endeavors later in life, and that's probably why these injuries are happening.
Agree, and yeah, for some context and insight, there's certainly that's research will show that. We've probably seen some papers sort of show there's like, in women in particular, there's this second peak that occurs in terms of injury incidence and injury rates are happening again in their kind of 30s and 40s. Whereas, our traditional peaks of ACL injuries often happen in our teens for females, and 14 to 19-year-olds are usually our kind of high risk window. For males, it's a little bit later, 19 to 25-year-old males with no frontal lobe. They tend to be the big risk window there. But then, so, from some of the European data and the skiing sort of populations in Norway and Scandinavia, we're seeing sort of this second peak occur in our 30s and 40s. And the thinking there is that yeah, the traditional females roles in the family and these kind of things, they're being seen as, the kids are growing up, they're getting older, kids are now sort of out enjoying life and they're doing family trips going away, and now mum's sort of getting involved in sport again or physical activity, and that's potentially why we're seeing that upward tick. But I'm seeing like this really strong resurgence in physical activity in women, that I haven't seen before. I've been a personal trainer I was a personal trainer before a PT and a physical therapist many years, and I'm just seeing this massive upward trend of more women in the gym, more women exercising. There's certainly this really strong, and the strong female is also too, like it's celebrated, and it's really, and my wife is a perfect example of this. The last 5 years she's just jumping into exercise, going to the gym, and we're seeing a lot more of that happening now, and I love it, and it's great to see, and having these strong role models available, and I also probably think you're right. Like we're seeing like an entry back into sport. Is flag football something that you've done all your life, or has it something that you've come back to at a later stage in your life?
It is something I've done since college.
Yeah.
It wasn't even, it didn't exist as a women's sport then, where I was. It was just, I joined Jason's intramural co-ed, or it was a men's league, and I
Yep.
was, me and my roommate were the only two girls in the whole league, and we were 18, just loved to play football, but never had the opportunity to play.
Yep.
And then after I graduated college, I actually found a women's league, and then the sport just started to really snowball and really grow in the States. And I just continued to play, but I took a couple seasons off to have kids. And
Yes.
then I had a couple COVID seasons off. So there were definitely some,
Yep.
some breaks here and there.
Yep.
But when this actually happened, I was training to try and see if I could make the trials for Team USA to try to get on the
Wow.
actual national team.
Awesome.
Because I had so much experience in the sport, but I had never trained that hard for it. It was always just kind of this side passion that I really
Yep.
loved. And Jason, it was Jason's idea because he always
Yep.
believes in me more than I believe in myself, which is
Amazing.
very sweet. But he
Yep.
was like, you should do this. Like, you're so talented. And so we went all in on training. So I definitely had never trained at that level that I had been training at leading up
Yep.
to this.
Yeah. It's like you could go through your history and probably pick a few little things there. Maybe that absence for a few years with kids, and then the COVID years, because we definitely saw a resurgence in ACL injuries, particularly here in Australia. When because I lived in Melbourne during the two biggest lockdown, well, the two, yeah, 2020, 2021, and basically for 2 years, Melbourne was the most locked down city in the world.
Oh, wow.
I think it got the record of the most locked down city, and we had like I'd comfortably say 6 to 7 months of both of those 2 years. And I think it was, yeah, collectively 16 months in total out of 24 months, we were in sort of some fairly restricted lockdown periods, which included really tight restrictions on gym usage, social sport, recreational sport. You could still go out and exercise individually, but you had to keep distances and all that kind of stuff. But in team sports and team training and going to the gym and working out, it was really tight and hard to get that consistency. And so when the floodgates opened and everyone sort of got back into sport, 2022, 2023, ACL injuries and serious knee injuries sort of skyrocketed again. That's what we saw. So that was yeah. So there's probably a few little things you can pick up, but it's such a shame, right? Like, you put this hard work in, and you're the fittest and the strongest that you've ever been in your life, and something like this happens. It could be probably pretty tough pill to swallow.
For
So
sure. Yeah.
yeah, and so are you happy to talk about the moment? Like, can you sort of walk us through what happened on that particular day?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like you can go, I've gone over this in my head a
Mhm.
thousand times, so I could pinpoint maybe 100 different reasons it might have happened on this day. But I play, so flag, just to give a quick synopsis of the sport, because I know it's not played
Yeah,
everywhere. Flag
yeah,
football, the style that I was playing this time is 5 on 5, so 5 people on offense, 5 people on defense, and I play receiver typically. So that's the person who runs and catches the ball.
yeah,
And on this game, I was only playing receiver like I typically do. And one of my teammates on defense got injured. Somebody elbowed her in the nose and she broke her nose. So somebody had to go in for her on defense. And I was like, oh, I'll do it. I play defense sometimes.
mm,
So I was like moving people around and I was like, I'll rush because the rusher just goes after the quarterback. So you run
yeah,
in and try to take the quarterback's flag. And this quarterback, I knew of her. She's very shifty. I knew that. I was prepared for it. But this was the very last play of the game.
yeah,
And the game was tied. So they were going for a Hail Mary win. And so my only job was to try to stop her from being able to throw the ball by getting her flag. So I
yeah,
sprinted in full speed instead of what you should typically do as a rusher, which is go in at maybe 75% speed,
yeah,
break down and wait for their move. I
yeah,
just went in full speed. She moved, I moved with her. She moved again the other way, and I
yeah,
planted my right foot in the ground and just heard the pop and heard my knee. And
yeah,
it didn't even hurt physically in the moment, I think because I knew what had happened. So I was
yeah,
just so mad, just so
yes,
frustrated. But yeah, it was very obvious to me right
yeah,
away by the way that I moved, by the way my foot got stuck in the ground, that
yeah,
that was what had
yeah.
happened.
Oh man, that's tough. And that was a pure non-contact injury for you. Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was again shocking to me, just as somebody who has been a trainer for almost 20 years and
Yep.
knows how to train in a way that you can't prevent injury, obviously, but
Yeah.
how to
Yeah.
minimize the risk of injury as much as possible.
That's right, exactly right. So yeah, I mean, we can all get on our kind of pedestals and say that non-contact injuries are largely preventable, but that there is still moments within any given day where the just the move that you've done hundreds, if not thousands of times before this moment, it's for whatever reason that given day, that moment, your ACL unfortunately is gone. It's surprisingly also, it may not be surprising to some, but definitely the defensive part of a game is certainly something that we're seeing a trend where if you're playing in a defensive role, you're more likely to tear your ACL than an offensive position. So, which makes sense because you're very reactive now.
You're reacting. Yeah.
And yeah, and so when you're on the offense, you know that you're going to cut, you're going to make a sort of shimmy to the left or go to the right, or you sort of can sort of, you internally know what's going to happen next. You don't have to necessarily react as much as what the defensive person does. And so there's something in that too, like, probably without getting too far ahead of ourselves, is that, yeah, from an injury prevention point of view, that's why, we always have to make sure we've got reactive kind of components
Yeah.
to our preparation as well.
For sure. And I hadn't been training that way because that wasn't a position I played.
No,
So not
exactly
that
right.
I mean,
Yep.
I will and should train that way anyway, just
Yeah.
because in life you might need to react and it's good to be able to control that. But yeah, that wasn't really something that I had been training for just because I was so focused on playing receiver and running routes and
Yep.
just hadn't really thought about that side of things.
Exactly right. So playing out of position was probably a risk factor. It's ultimately preparing for the worst case scenario is something that we always need to be thinking of. Side note, we saw in our women's Aussie rules. You said you spent some time down here in Australia. Aussie rules is a very popular sport. Obviously, really only played here in Australia. Funnily enough, it's called Aussie rules. Wild game for anyone that's listening and watching in America. If you ever watched a game, it's played on an oval. There's 34 men or women running around. It's absolute chaos. I can't even begin to sort of try to explain the rules to you, but nevertheless, the professional women's competition is really generating some steam, and in the last 10 years, it's getting more popular. It's getting more professional. In our first year of competition here in Australia, the rates of ACL injuries in our professional women's comp versus the men's comp, which has been around for decades and decades, it was a 10 times greater risk for those females in those first 2 or 3 years of injuring their ACL versus the established men's comp. And what we kind of started to learn from that is that to start the competition, the competition, they pulled in not only these young, talented females growing up and playing footy all their life and putting them on centre stage, they were pulling elite athletes from other sports who were like, well, I'm good at soccer, or I'm good at hockey, or I'm good at basketball. You know what? I've played AFL. I know how to kick a ball. I'm going to go and join this team. And so changing sports was also too, and cross coding, they called it. So if you crossed into another code and played a different sport that you weren't used to, that also too elevated your injury risk in those first few years too. So it's a fascinating topic, the mechanisms of ACL injuries, and that's where we can never wholly and solely blame it on anatomy, hormones, the cycle, the female cycle, strength, all these kind of things, because there's just so many reasons why an ACL can go on any given day. Um,
Yeah, there was a couple those were kind of the other factors that
mm,
of course played through my mind. So one of them was that it was very cold and the ground we were playing on was very hard and
yeah,
not good grass. And so that's like something that I consider now when I'm going out to play is like what's the field like and is it
yeah,
worth it? Because I shouldn't have nobody should have been playing sports on that field. It was terrible. It was dirt. It was hard. It was cold. Like it
yeah,
wasn't conducive to planting your feet really hard into that ground. So that was a factor.
yeah,
I was obviously later on, I went into where was I on my cycle? I was ovulating at that time, which
yeah,
I've heard different research. I've heard that women on their period are more likely. I've also heard that women in ovulation are more likely.
yeah,
So I don't really know where the research officially stands on that.
yeah,
But that was the hormonal factor that could have played into it for me
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
So yeah, just so many factors.
Lots of little different reasons, yeah. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, like all ACL injuries, it's like, well, once you've sort of had the injury, it's like, okay, what are we going to do now? So what was kind of like initial days and weeks for you, you know, the initial management, you know, the treatment decisions that were sort of put forward to you. Can you sort of talk us through those first few weeks about what happened next?
Sure. Yes, for sure. And I'm sure that our healthcare system is different here than it is there. But for us, we have to wait for insurance to cover or to approve getting an MRI, which shouldn't be hard, but was very, very hard. So I
Yeah.
went to a walk-in orthopedic practice, and the guy who looked at my knee originally said, "It's not that swollen. You don't seem to be in that much pain. You're walking. I don't think it's an ACL." And I was like, "Okay, but I do think it's an ACL." And I was like, I heard what happened. Like, I've
Yeah.
seen these injuries before. I've treated these injuries before. Not treated, but I've worked with patients, with clients who have had them before. Anyway, I was not believed by the first two people that I saw. So they sent me
Wow.
for an x-ray. They said, probably we'll have you do some physical therapy to see if we have any improvements before we can actually approve an MRI.
Wow.
So they wanted me to wait 6 weeks to even get an MRI. So that was frustrating. I chose to actually pay out of pocket,
Yeah.
which
Wow.
is a privileged choice that I was able
Yeah.
to make because I could afford it.
And how
But
much for context in like how much is that in America?
it was less expensive than I expected. It was $600
Okay,
US.
US. Yeah.
So because I was thinking if it was going to be thousands, I was not going
Yeah.
to do it. But I was like, I'll do it because I
Yeah.
know I want to get this because in my head, I wanted to get things moving as quickly as
Yep.
possible. I knew
Yeah,
this
for
was going
sure.
to be at least a year of rehab, and I didn't want to wait months before I could even see a surgeon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, so I
And
think I
if
ended up getting the MRI within the first week, and came back positive ACL. They
yeah,
couldn't, it was inconclusive for meniscus at the
yep,
time. So I actually went into surgery thinking, hoping that it was only ACL,
yep.
um, and came out learning that it was ACL and meniscus.
And meniscus as well, bugger.
Yeah.
So so the MRI, is that something that where do you get that referral from? Is that do you have to go to a general practice doctor or can you
Yeah.
just
So first I had to go to a general practitioner who then had to refer me to an orthopedist.
yep,
The orthopedic doctor then had to refer me to get an MRI.
yep.
But
And then it
they
just
don't want to, I guess.
yeah.
I don't know
And,
why.
and when you paid out of pocket, and that process was that's how that worked out, GP orthopedist, then you just pay, you know, out of pocket. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy the differences there. Like you not sure if you well 2009 things may have also been very different to 15, 16 years ago. But now standard practice here in Australia, if you fall between the ages of 16 and 50, if you've got an acute knee injury, um, so knee swelling, a traumatic history, um, you automatically qualify for an MRI, and a Medicare rebated MRI. So basically, a free MRI here in Australia. You still have to see a GP. You still need to go to the general practitioner. But if you get lucky enough, you see a bulk billing one that won't charge you anything out of pocket. They refer you for an MRI. You can get that MRI done fairly quickly. So yeah, it's wild the differences. And is that
Yeah.
state by state difference too, or would that be a uniform sort of thing across?
I think that's pretty much uniform across
Yeah,
the states with our
yeah,
healthcare system. Yeah.
man. So
Very
and then
unfortunate.
once you got the diagnosis, what did you meet with a physical therapist there, or did you go to orthopedic surgeon? What was that kind of next step, and what were your sort of treatment choices put on the table for you?
Yes. So, do you know Mike Reinold and Lenny
Yep.
Macrina?
Yeah. I spoke to
So
Len just a few weeks ago, actually, on this very same podcast.
amazing. Well, he's my
Yeah.
PT.
Oh wow, awesome, great guy, love
Yeah,
him.
so I'm very lucky.
Yeah.
And Mike is a close friend of ours. And so when it first happened, before I even got the results, I called Mike and I said, "What's your recommendation if I did tear my ACL?"
Yeah.
And so he, of course, started giving me, names of surgeons that he trusts in my
Yeah.
area, which was so lucky. So I was able to see somebody who was vetted.
Yes.
Um, and then he gave me the options for grafts because I didn't really know what the differences were. I've heard
Yeah.
people say, "Oh, I had a hamstring graft, I had a patellar tendon graft," but I didn't really know why somebody might get one over the other. So he walked me through that whole process. So I went into my first meeting with a surgeon feeling very confident about my choice there, what I
Yeah.
wanted. why I wanted it, and that was really helpful.
Yeah, awesome. And so what did you end up going with in terms of graft?
I went patellar tendon graft.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. That's
And
great.
the recommendation was because I wanted to return to sport. Like
Yeah.
I had no question in my mind that I still wanted to play.
Yeah.
And so once I told him that, he was like, it's it's the gold standard. He said the recovery might be a little harder. It
Yeah.
might be a little bit more painful. But I think ultimately it's the best choice for you. And I agreed.
Yeah.
I also had a hamstring strain earlier that year.
Yeah.
And so he was like, I don't think that taking more away from your hamstring would be the
Yeah.
right call. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what we went
Cool.
with.
And from the moment, like obviously you were gearing up for, trying out for the national team in flag football. Um, was that also still front of your mind that this injury is not going to let get in the way of that goal? Or once that happened, was it kind of like, what do I do now? Like, do I, did that sort of come into the conversation? Because I often meet people who sort of are at a crossroads after their ACL injury, particularly when work and life and family probably start becoming center stage. Whereas you conversely, you got your teenager, your university student, someone who isn't married, they don't have kids, they don't have those extra things where they can still be fairly selfish when it comes to them doing their thing. Whereas when you've got other people to think about, things just start sort of shifting a little bit. Like, did that happen to you, or was it like, nah, I'm still stubborn here. I'm going to go. I want to make the US national team. I want to go forward and make this goal and achieve this goal. And yeah, was that part of that sort of thoughts and conversation?
Yeah, I do very well under um being challenged. Like I really like to be underestimated. That was why I was doing it in the first place. I'm already a little old to be trying out for the national team. I'm already probably one
We
of the
just
only
get
moms
better
who would
as
be
we get
doing it.
older. We get better as we get older. I
There's in a lot of ways.
I love the 40s. 40s are the best.
Yeah. I can't wait. I'm almost there. Um, but yeah, I like being underestimated. I like being an underdog. I like having something to prove. So as soon as it happened, it was not even a question in my mind if I wanted to get back.
Yep.
And I did question, okay, can I really, and I still question, can I
Mm.
really get back to the same level? Do I really want to push myself to that extreme again? Is it going to happen again? All those things go through your head,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
Because obviously as a mom, like it was really hard. I had to
Yeah.
rely on Jason a lot during those early months. And so, yeah, you definitely question. I think I didn't question it immediately because it was like before surgery, before I really understood how
Yep.
grueling the process would be. I was like, no, I'm gonna get back. Like immediately I wanted to treat this like rehab process as if it was just another goal.
Yeah. And what was it like? So, how long after injury to surgery was it? Was it a 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks? What was that time?
It was like 3.5 weeks.
Yeah, okay. So fairly soon. And
Hmm.
did you have any chance to do some rehab first before surgery, or was it kind of like a fairly quiet period where you just kept it calm and then surgery, or what did you do?
I wish I had done more prehab,
Yeah.
um, because of some of the struggles I had post surgery.
Okay.
That I just it's so it's so hard when you're going through it for the first time. It's so easy in hindsight to be like, I should have done this, I should have done
Yep.
that. But I wanted to get it done fast because
Yeah.
I was like, once I have the surgery, then I had this timeline in my mind
Yep.
of from surgery to 9 months out or a year out, like where can I be and when are the next round of trials going to be? And so I was kind of mapping all of that out. And so I
Yep.
just wanted to go as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my swelling was not too bad. Like I remember them like checking everything, my surgeon checking everything, and the swelling wasn't too bad, but flexion was limited.
Yeah.
Extension was okay.
Yeah.
So extension was fine, but flexion was limited. And I wish I had spent a week or two more just
Yeah.
trying to get full flexion back because
Yep.
flexion is what I struggled with the most
Yeah,
post-op.
okay. Yeah, cool. So that's yeah. And so you said you've had some struggles post-op. Is that let's say the first 2 or 3 months, what did you find probably, I guess, the hardest part, or what were you struggling with the most post-operatively? Yeah.
Yeah, early on, besides pain management, it was much
Mm.
more painful than I expected.
Yeah, yeah, yep.
I was like, I've been through having two kids. I've been through a lot, but this was painful. So I was
Painful.
kind of shocked by the pain level
Yeah.
of the first like week or two. Um, and
And
then
just like an
flexion.
all-round pain, like, or was it like specific, like harvest site pain, or was it weight, like range of movement difficulty pain? Like, because some people that have never, yeah, if, especially physios that have never been through this, like, yeah, where was the pain and what was it like, if you can sort of
For
describe?
me, the most pain was behind my knee,
Yeah,
which could have been meniscus. Like I don't really know because I had two surgeries. So and the other thing was so I woke up from surgery and was told it was ACL and meniscus. So I had been hoping waking up from surgery it was just ACL. I could be weight bearing as quickly as possible. Like I knew that that would speed up early recovery. But then I was told non-weight bearing for 6 weeks with the
yeah,
addition of the meniscus. So that definitely slowed things down a lot.
yeah,
Lenny helped me get weight bearing a little bit earlier,
yeah,
which was very helpful under his guidance and under like him checking in with my surgeon. Thankfully, this was very huge that
yes,
Lenny knew my surgeon, my PT knew my surgeon, and they could speak to each other.
yeah,
I know not a lot of people have that perk, but that was really helpful because the surgeon is they see you once, they see you for surgery, and then they see you at 6 weeks,
yeah,
and so they have to give you kind of the safest blanket
yes,
statement, right? Non-weight bearing for 6 weeks without seeing is your quad activating? Like, how are you doing in those first 6 weeks? And a lot is happening in those first 6 weeks.
yeah,
So I was very lucky that Lenny, my PT, was able to ask, like, hey, she's doing pretty well. What do you think about partial weight bearing? What do you
yeah.
think about weight bearing in the brace? Things like that.
Yeah, that's a really important message, and thanks for bringing that up because that's our jobs also to advocate for our patients, and like each person will have different demands and goals and wishes and lots of different things. And you're right, yeah, the safest bet for the safest line to take with a surgeon is put everyone non-weight bearing for 6 weeks and kind of set and forget. But there's going to be some outliers there that probably just want to push the envelope a little bit. And arguably the meniscus can tolerate some loading. And like everything in the body, it needs some load. And you don't want to sacrifice one part of the body. Like, yes, the meniscus will stick down better if we don't load it for 6 weeks or we don't do anything there. It'll naturally heal. But conversely, your quads and the knee joint will suffer greatly. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
you kind of you're yeah, you're gaining something here and you're helping something here, but far out, you are just the detrimental effects over here are so significant that it's actually going to compromise the meniscus over here. So there's got to be
Right.
some kind of middle ground, and that's where I think you're a perfect example of having that great physio with the great communication lines to the surgeon. And yes, it doesn't always happen. There's some early career clinicians who are just, scared to even sort of have a conversation with a surgeon, yet they just haven't sort of been around long enough to have that. But those that are probably of us who are a little bit more older and experienced, our job is to advocate. And yeah, great job by Lenny to get some early weight bearing because I've seen the benefits of just giving our meniscus repairs a little bit of, I guess, calculated risk and a little bit of
Mm.
calculated load, and they thrive because the ones that I've been told to lock away for 6 weeks, or they've kind of been told by the surgeon to lock away for 6 weeks, and then they present 6 weeks post-op with no physio input because they said, well, what could you do for me for the last 6 weeks? And it's like, well, I could have
Uh,
done a lot, but anyway, well,
yeah.
they turn up and you're now 3 months behind,
Hmm.
guaranteed. Like it takes at least 3 months. The 6 weeks that you've just been blocked for and locked for, double that time to get you back to kind of relative parity. So yeah, no, that's cool. So you got loading early and you sort of got your way through. Did Lenny throw some cool things at you? Did he BFR and stim and all the fun stuff there?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to go back to I like took a detour, but to go back to
Yes,
your
I
original
do it all
question
the time
about
too. Sorry.
where, where the pain was. So the pain was mainly in the back of my knee because I knew how important extension was early. And so I was very conscious of elevating at my heel. So I had my heel like was the only thing that had anything underneath it. And I was just letting gravity
Mhm.
pull me into extension, but it hurt a lot. And I
Yeah.
definitely questioned, like, is this hurting to a bad
Mm.
extent? It's very hard to understand what pain is okay pain versus maybe setting you back pain. Like that was a lot of my early like emotional mental struggle was like,
Yeah.
am I hurting myself? Am I making myself better? And so that was one of the ones where just that like trying to get extension early when everything was hurting. I was like, am I doing the right thing? But I think ultimately because I was able to regain extension so well so early, I think that that elevation, letting gravity do its thing and
Yeah.
just kind of like getting through that was important.
Yeah. And yeah, the is that what, and so the pain and the rate and would like the weight bearing restrictions that would have been tough, like, having kids and sort of trying to sort
Yeah.
of maintain home life and kids life, like that's such a like a restriction on you when you have to be non-weight bearing. Like, is that also too included as part of that tough period?
Yes, yeah, for sure, for sure. I definitely was on the couch a lot and that was
Yeah.
hard. And the kids like I've great now it's like fun to look back at the pictures I have of them like snuggled with me and I'm reading them
Yeah.
books and like trying to still be with them. But Jason had to take on like I was very lucky to have a partner to
Yes.
take on a lot of the all of the housework, all of the driving the kids to school. It was my
Yeah.
right leg too, so
Oh,
driving
yeah.
was obviously out for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all of
Yeah.
that was obviously hard in the beginning. But yeah, Lenny threw everything at me, which was great.
Yeah.
We got an NMES, I got an NMES and a BFR for home.
Awesome.
Again, privileged to be able to have that because Jason and I are in the industry. We kind of understood that the more I could do it, the better. And so
Yeah.
to have it at home would be a huge benefit.
Yeah.
So I was doing NMES like quad sets starting on, I think, day 3 or 4, and I was just using it multiple times a day.
Yeah.
And even just doing that, like, and then leg raises with it as well. And just the fact that I had to get off the couch and get onto the floor and do those exercises, even though they're barely anything, like they're not hard exercises, just
Yeah.
that movement alone, I think just really kept me just a little bit more sane and a little bit more physically able to do things. Like I had to learn how to get myself up and down with my leg straight in a brace. And
Yes.
I was thankful for my knowledge of like movement to be able to do all of that.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. Do you think being a trainer and having some really strong experience in training and resistance training and exercise, do you think that's helped you, or potentially sometimes hindered you?
I think it helped. I think it mostly helped. I think I have an understanding of if you're not putting load on a limb, it's going to lose muscle. And so how do you
Yep.
we have to isolate it. We have to target it. We have to do leg raises in all directions. Like I just understood the
Yep.
importance of all of that.
Yep.
So I think that if I wasn't so aware of that, it might have been easy to skip a couple sets or to
Yes.
not be so on top of those exercises. But I was like, this is my training right now. Like I'm a trainer. I follow my own programming. Like I'm gonna follow this like it's my own program. And I think it was helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And I only ask because physiotherapists are classically terrible at managing their own injuries. We tend to be, and I'm perfect case in point. I'm one of those people that probably would manage a lot of my own kind of niggles around my body, thinking that I know best. But I think in times like this, having that objective person, and that second voice or that second set of eyes on things, or in your case, a third set of eyes, because I'm sure Jason would have been sort of, hovering around and sort of telling you little bits and pieces too. But even your own sort of insight too. I think it's important that there is some objectivity there. But yeah, that's good to hear that. Yeah, that understanding and that knowledge and treating it like your job. Treating it. Like, I'm going to treat myself like I would train my clients.
Right.
Did your role, I guess, from a work perspective, how did you sort of manage those first 3 months when you were really sort of struggling, like, to weight bear and get around? Like, how did you work through those first, really difficult and tricky first 3 months?
Yeah, we had to do some maneuvering on who does what.
Mhm.
Jason and I run our own business, and it's a fitness business. We write a program that goes out every month, and I do all of the video demonstrations for all of the exercises. Obviously, wasn't going to be doing that for a couple months. So he took that on, and then I took on some more of like the writing, scripting, things like that. For content.
Yeah.
And then we're writing a book as well. So I was kind of like able to shift my
Yeah.
focus into things that were stationary for a little
Yes.
while,
Yeah.
which is very hard. And those were some of the moments where I was like, is this worth it? Like, I can't do my job.
Yeah.
Um, And do I really want to potentially do that again? Like those thoughts definitely would creep in those times when I literally couldn't do what I am supposed to do on a daily
Yeah.
basis. Obviously, on top of not being able to carry my kids, carrying my kids was the biggest one. That's one
Yes.
that makes me want to cry.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Because you got young ones, right? Like they're how
Yeah,
old?
3 and 6.
Yeah. Wow. That's a needy age, like for your
Yeah.
kids. They want mum probably more so than they want dad. Not being able to sort of, give them that sort of love and affection as much as what you physically have probably been able to do, used to have been able to done. It's definitely a tough period of time. Yeah, it's what I'm hearing there is certainly just having that really strong, you know, and partnership relationships. Like I think important in those first 3 months, and I've sort of heard this similar messaging from people that have gone through this ACL rehab, both athletes and everyday working people. Is what's got them through those first 3 months is family, friends, loved ones, connection, and having a little community around them. That's really sort of helped, and it's certainly a consistent theme that it's a village when it comes to this kind
Yeah,
of stuff.
I like when I think about how much Jason did, it's really amazing. And he like even before his surgery, he got me this little cart that had like just different like it had tea and it had a journal and it had
Yeah,
a blanket and just all the stuff that just to make me feel more comfortable.
yeah,
And he was just like a super good caretaker.
yeah.
So that was very,
Nice.
very important.
Has he gone through something like this himself? So he's got some
No,
empathy there. No, yeah.
no, he's just a good guy.
Yeah, just a good guy. You got to find those good guys.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you've sort of found a little, a few sort of silver linings there to your ACL rehab too. Like, what were some of those really in the dark moments that you probably had, and some of the really, sad moments? Like, what were you sort of, big silver linings to come out of those first, tough 3 months or so?
Yeah, there's so many. And that's why I actually kept a journal and I highly recommend anybody
Yeah.
going through it does. I'm not even a journal person or a diary
Mm.
person. I never
Yeah.
have been, but it's so helpful to not just to write it out, but then to look back at it because I've been able to like sometimes you feel stuck and then you can look back 3 weeks and realize that you've come so far. And
Yes.
so having that as a constant reminder of all the things that I overcame throughout it was really helpful and just
Mm.
gave me like it gave me a lot of pride in like how
Yeah.
much I could do and how much
Yeah.
I can get over. So I think that's a silver lining in itself is that it teaches you a lot about resilience and just a lot about how much you can push yourself if you
Yes.
really are like
Yeah.
if you really want something.
Great. I'm a huge fan of journaling, and I think because each day, like especially like when you're a busy person, you got like my brain is a constant mess of activity. Some days I can't even remember what I had for breakfast,
Yeah.
and like to actually spend that moment every evening. So I've got into a habit. I kind of wax and wane, but I've certainly revisited it again in the last few weeks. But at the start of the year, like you, I was journaling, daily for months on end. Just yeah, just I think it's a good habit to get into because you can sometimes get caught up in the chaos of life and sometimes miss those perfectly great, wonderful moments in every day. But overall, you still may sort of walk away from the day going, "Oh, geez, that was a tough day. Like, I'm sore, I'm in pain. Had a really crappy sleep last night, or this is stressing me out." But each day, there's going to be beautiful moments that make you smile or make you laugh. And I think it's obviously like anything, you remember the positive things. Try to lay those positive memories down rather than sort of focus on the negatives. I think like you said, a really, really valuable tip for anyone, both physios that are listening or PTs listening, but also to any patients that are listening too, is that a really simple, it's not a one. I wouldn't even call it a 1%er. It's probably like a 10%er to add value to your overall rehab plan is journal,
Yeah.
and look for those really really positive moments because unfortunately in those first few months there's probably a lot more tougher moments and tougher days. But yeah, if you can find those days where there's little bits of beauty in them, I think that will help you get through those challenging times for sure.
For sure. Yeah. And
Um,
just celebrating the small wins. Because I think in the beginning, it's so easy to get caught up in like, I can't even put weight on this leg. Like, how will I ever cut
mm,
or run again or sprint
yeah,
again? Like, you can't think like that or else you'll drive yourself crazy or
Yeah.
you'll never even you won't even try. It's like too far of a goal basically to motivate you. And so for me, I had to just set like really specific, really small goals. Like if I hit 85 degrees inflection
Yeah.
at PT last week, I want to hit 95 this week. And it's just like, that doesn't seem like a big deal, but it is. And you have to treat it like a big deal so that you work really hard to get to that because
Yeah.
that is going to snowball.
Yeah. It was that
Yeah.
one of your first big wins, getting that flexion, because you said flexion was a big one that you were struggling with early. Was that like your kind of
Yeah.
first memorable win in those first couple of months?
Yeah, for sure. I struggled a lot with it, and we were all surprised because I'm a fairly like I'm not super flexible, but I'm very
Mm.
mobile, and
Yeah.
like my I had like I don't know 165 degrees of flexion on my good side, or I should
Yeah.
say shouldn't say good or bad, but on
Yeah.
my left side.
Yeah.
So I already had a lot of range of motion at the knee
Yeah.
previously, and I kind of just I think we all kind of assumed that that part wouldn't really be too much of an issue for me. We thought like maybe strengthening or things like that down the road might be hard, but I we didn't think that mobility would be hard.
Yeah.
Um, and so it was not only hard, but it was also a surprise. And so then it
Yes.
was like doubly hard.
Yeah.
Um,
What was your flexion sort of like, for example, when was the first time you rode a stationary exercise bike after your
ooh, I gotta go get my journal to remember that. I wrote that down,
like
but
after was it like
well,
after
so I
two
will
months or
say,
3 months?
I think it was, I do think it was like under 2 months.
Yeah. Yep.
So when I say I struggled with it, take it with a grain of salt because I don't think I was behind on any milestones.
Yep.
Um, personally, I felt like I was struggling with it.
Yeah.
So when I went to PT the first day, it was 3 days post op. I went to my first PT session, and I remember specifically I got 83 degrees of flexion
Yep.
after 3 days. So that was
Yep.
amazing, and we
Awesome.
were like pumped. And I was like, okay, this is gonna be a breeze. We got this.
Yeah.
We're golden. And the next time I went, I think it was like 6 days post op, and I got 90 degrees of flexion. I was
Yes.
like, this is crazy. So
Yeah.
I started out feeling like I was just on this upward trajectory.
Yep.
And then something that I didn't personally realize, and I'm sure Lenny told me, and I'm sure my surgeon told me, but you get told a
Yeah.
lot of things, was that I should be doing any flexion exercises at home on my own.
Right.
So I kept myself fully locked in my brace
Yeah.
all the time except for when I went to PT.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So the first two times I went, it was fine because I hadn't gotten stuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, third time I went, I got knocked back to like 70 degrees and it was
Yeah.
extremely painful.
Right.
And I was like crying on the table, like trying to bend it more. And it just felt so stuck. And so then I started to panic. And so then
Yes.
obviously we talked about I need to be doing heel slides at home.
Yeah.
I can take myself out of the brace. I was so afraid to do anything wrong that I
Yeah.
didn't ever take the brace off in the beginning. And so that's
Yeah.
where I had basically a setback from what started out as a really positive, like upward
Yes.
swing.
Yeah, well, that's a really good sort of teaching point for us as well as physios, is that make sure that because those the first week post injury, the first couple of weeks post surgery, there's a lot of stuff going on within that person. Like the person laying down on the bed in front of you on the bed, like there's a lot going on in their brain. Um, and so that for us is really important to really be clear with our communication, because yeah, they may have said something to you, but then also too, it's always good for us to kind of reinforce it either via writing. I mean, it's a very simple thing that I do is after every session that I see a patient, I email them, just send them through like, 4 or 5 sort of really bullet points of what we need to do between now and our next visit. That because that 1 hour, once a week, or if it's twice a week, there's a lot of hours that person is doing stuff unsupervised at home. So, making sure that they can sort of get the best out of their rehab between sessions and overall over time is making sure that they fill their other hours at home really effectively too. So yeah, big lesson there for everyone is, yeah, don't rely on the verbal messaging. It's always
Hmm.
good to sort of write stuff down, be it via an app or via a phone call, voice message, or via a text or email or whatever. But yeah, that's what's worked for me. I think has helped get some better outcomes by having that follow up communication.
For sure. I know that as a trainer, there's like things that you assume that people know or
Mm.
forget to reinforce because you do it every day and you say it so much that you just probably assume you said it or assume that the person already knows. So like
Yeah.
I do think that was one where I was like, oh my God, how like I was like, how did I not realize that? But I also, because this was my first time going through it, I was
Yeah.
like, just kind of like going over what I thought the rules were. And I'm such a rule follower and I didn't want to do anything wrong. And so I was like, with the meniscus, you have to be really careful about weight bearing and flexion. So, and I had heard different things. I will say I got too caught up in Reddit
Yeah.
sometimes. And I got a little too down a couple too many rabbit holes of like horror stories, which I
Yeah.
don't recommend. I don't recommend listening to horror birth stories, and I don't
No.
recommend listening
No.
to horror ACL stories because none of them are helpful.
Yeah.
Um, but I got nervous that I wasn't supposed to be bending my knee on my own. So I like told myself that in my head, which just wasn't true and ended up knocking me back. So
Yeah. Another good message there is, yeah, don't rely on Dr. Google or Dr. Reddit
yeah,
or other things. Because yeah, it is. It's always the worst stories that people will share. It's not. It's certainly outweighed between the positive stories versus the negative stories, and the negative stories and the negative messaging is far almost like double that of the good things you'll come across. So
yeah,
always rely on the physical therapist or the doctor, sitting right in front of you.
for sure.
Yeah. And what did you have any prior, like you then sort of moved through the next couple of months, like rehab wise, did you have any like preconceived ideas of what rehab would look like? Like, you managing a few previously and managing some patients, did you kind of half think this is what it's going to do. This is how my rehab will play out. Like, what was there a big disconnect between what you thought AC post-op ACL rehab would look like for you personally, or was it very similar to what you had in mind? Like, what was that for you?
It was more, I would say like the way that I wanted to approach it was like I want to do everything possible to set myself up for success. And that meant like way more work than I was expecting, dedicated to specifically this leg.
Yeah,
Like I when we had seen people who were post ACL as trainers, they were typically 9 months to a year out.
yeah,
So I never saw somebody early on.
brilliant.
I didn't really realize how far back you got set by being non-weight bearing, things like that. Like
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't think I understood uh like how much atrophy there would really be and how hard it would be to build that back up. And
yeah,
then managing like different types of aches and pains and things along the way. So for me,
yeah,
like because I had the patellar tendon graft, uh, just getting my knees over my toes, like getting that positive shin angle
yeah,
was starting to cause some anterior knee pain, which then we had to manage, but we also needed to load my quad. So it was just like a lot
yeah,
more of a balancing act of
yeah,
how to come back versus like we're just going to train hard and we're
yeah,
going to strength train and we're going to squat and we're going to deadlift and we're going to lunge and we're going to like just get my muscle back. Like it was just a lot more of a delicate balance and dance to find the right dose and the right exercises. So it was just a little more of that than I expected.
yeah. No, that's really good insight because it's a delicate dance, as you said, because it's particularly patella tendons, I find, because our goal with patella tendons, goal with ACL is to get that quad back as soon as possible because it's going to be your big shock absorber. It's going to help your overall knee health. It contributes a lot to your function, particularly sudden stopping, changing of direction, landing. So without a healthy quad, then you're going to struggle with lots of knee joint pain, patellofemoral joint pain, and yeah, swelling.
Yeah.
But having the patella tendon, which is a big part of that kind of extensor unit, like you take that central third out, then all of a sudden now we've just get inherently this weak quad. So now we're going to open up the door to patella tendinopathy symptoms and that kind of stuff. It's a beast.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a fine dance. It's like managing, pain locations as well, because you could have patella tendon pain, which you kind of want to play. You can play around a little bit with patellofemoral joint. You can play around with a bit. Meniscus, we would kind of want to go, yeah, let's really minimize any kind of these joint line pains. That could be your meniscus. We don't want that to come undone. Obviously, muscle soreness, we want that. We want that in droves because that's going to help you. So it is. It's having that kind of intelligence and that you've got this in built kind of, knowledge base and intelligence to know where the pain location is and what it could be. But there'll be some other people who kind of just clump pain all together who won't know to
Soreness and
differentiate.
pain might be
Yeah.
interchangeable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's from our perspective as a physio, we need to be educating our patients and our clients on what pain is okay, what pain can you work with, what pain is a hard stop and say, nah, this is something we don't want to play with because this will really backfire. Or, you know what, a little bit of pain here is okay. This is going to toughen them up and make them a little bit stronger overall. So yeah, it's a fun dance, but it's it's certainly a lot of trial and error in those first 4 to 6 months, particularly with those patella tendons, because, you think you're going well, and all of a sudden you can have like a couple of rough days, and all of a sudden now it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and yeah. How did you find the first, let's overall the first 6 months? Did you sort of get to that 6 month kind of first target and think, okay, I'm actually, despite the slowish start in your head, were you at the 6 month mark feeling like you were now on par, or because you
Yeah.
would
So
at Lenny's clinic, you would see other people in your same position. Like, were you comparing yourself at any stage, and where did you sort of see yourself fit?
Well, I'm so ridiculous that I was like, I don't know if you guys really follow the NFL, but there's a player called Stephon Diggs who tore his ACL
Yeah.
at the same time as me. And so I was literally trying to compare myself to him, who's like a professional athlete who has all the best everything. But I was like, watch, he was documenting everything. So I was like, okay, he can do that. I want to be able to do that. So
How'd you
I
go?
don't recommend.
Were you on part? Did you meet his return to sport goal?
No, he's already playing in the NFL. But it was nice. It was good for me to have somebody who I knew was going to be ahead of me, but like it was helpful to see somebody doing things that I was like, ooh, I didn't think I could do that yet. Like almost give me a little bit of confidence in myself that like obviously not going outside of any of my testing limitations, but like I'm going to be able to get there. Like being able to see somebody ahead of me who's gone through the same things, like it is really helpful.
Yeah.
And then in the clinic, obviously, like everyone's just at different stages. I tried not to compare myself to anyone in there. It just felt much more like a supportive place where
Yeah.
everybody's kind of like helping each other out, but I wasn't really comparing myself to other people,
Yeah, that's good. I
only to
think,
NFL players.
yeah, yeah, just compare yourself to the most elite person in the world, and then judge yourself on where you're going. Yeah, really sort of boost your spirits that way.
Yes, yeah,
Um,
it's a great
yeah.
thing to do for your mindset. No. Um, but the first this once I got flexion back, which I will say probably happened within the first 12 weeks,
Yeah.
that I was back to full flexion. At th the 3 month mark, I also got 70% quad LSI, which
Awesome.
I was really happy about. So
Good.
that was
Good on
great.
you.
I felt like we had been doing a ton of, I mean, we had been doing a ton of training at that point. We were doing BFR, but we were doing deadlift, squats, some single leg step ups with a TRX. Like we
Yeah.
were really starting to build, and I was riding the bike every day.
Awesome.
Um, so I was really happy with that. And we also learned through this testing that I'm super hamstring dominant, super hip
Yeah.
dominant,
Yeah.
which
Well. Cool.
then made me reflect on my movement in general and how I move in the gym and how I move in life because everything I do, I
Yep.
sit back
Posterior.
into my hips.
Yep.
And I actually had surgery when I was younger on both feet. I had extra navicular bones on both feet.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And I
Yep.
was in casts, double casts for a couple months, like
Yep.
between casts and boots and all of that. So I have very limited ankle mobility because I don't think I
Yeah.
had good
Yeah.
PT. I don't
Right.
think I went to PT after, which is crazy.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So everything I do, I don't let my knees go over my toes, basically.
Yeah.
Not intentionally, but just
Yes.
that's the way I naturally move. And so my hamstring strength was off the charts.
Yep.
And so the ratio was really off too.
Yeah.
Like really heavy, which was interesting because Lenny was saying like typically it's the other way around
Other
for
way around.
females. And so we're
Yep.
trying to build their hamstring strength up. He was like,
Yep.
you actually need to focus more on your quads and less on
Yes.
your hamstrings.
Yeah, wow, that's and it's definitely counterintuitive to our kind of, mechanism of injury, because we kind of
Hmm.
leave the absence of the hamstring. You don't get that same pullback mechanism to help prevent those, extra shear forces. That it's been sort of challenged a bit where we're thinking now it's just that really strong ground reaction force that overwhelms the knee and the ACL as opposed to any other major stuff. But yeah, that's a fascinating finding. And like the knee, so your ankle mobility, your say like your knee to wall test, is that something that you've always struggled with, or is that something
Mhm.
that you've kind of been working hard on? And has it changed? Like if you have noticed that deficit, has it changed for you over time?
So I remember first learning about ankle mobility in
Yeah,
like, I don't even know when I started, 2007, 2008.
yeah,
Like I was like, oh wow, I really struggle with this. And I remember I couldn't squat well. Like I would always be, I would, and I always, early on, I always adjusted my lifting technique to meet myself where I was at instead of focusing on the
yeah,
ankles. So I started
yeah,
low bar back squatting
yeah.
and I loved deadlifts. And I was like, I just don't like squats. I like
Yes.
deadlifts. And so I
Yeah.
would just kind of let myself gravitate to the things that I didn't
We're
need the
easy.
ankle
Yeah,
mobility for.
yeah, yeah,
And then when I did start to learn about the importance of it, I definitely started doing all the drills. I was doing
yeah,
band distraction and, weighted, loaded ankle
yeah,
mobs and everything. And I definitely noticed a difference. I will
yeah,
say it's improved, but I think years ago, I sort of hit a wall,
yeah,
um, where I don't feel like it's improved
yep,
for the last
yep.
10 years or so.
Yeah, wow.
And I think
And do you
it's definitely
travel over
limited.
your, yeah, can you get like a positive shin angle? Like, can you get your knees over your toes now? Like
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
I can. It's definitely not like it's not aggressively limited. But it's something that I have to be super conscious of, and I have to really focus on doing it because my body won't naturally do that. When I
yes,
go into a squat, my body's naturally going to sit back, so I have to do like a goblet, like have a weight in front of me to help to get me to allow me to go knees over toes.
yeah,
So I've been focusing a lot more on that in this stage of rehab. Is like I can't just default back to my
yes,
comfortable movement pattern. I have to get
yeah,
out of that and I have to really force that forward chin angle in all of my
absolutely.
movements.
And do you elevate your heels as well? Like,
Yes.
do you manipulate that variable? Yep.
Yep. So we've been using a lot of slant boards, a lot of
Yep.
heel elevation just to really force that.
Yeah, 'cause that's also too like a little teaching there point there for and I see this quite a lot with not only females but males too. Like people that have got a good training history, they may have squatted or they prefer a deadlift over a squat, and whether or not it's because they've had ankle history problems or whatever, but if you want to get the quad to engage more in ACL rehab and you want to make an exercise quad dominant, we need to sort of find ways to bring the body weight forward into the forefoot. Now, whether or not you elevate your heel or you encourage, knees over toes, or you just even get people to, feel their body weight in the forefoot, in the ball of the foot rather than the heel, because 9 times out of 10, people that are going to squat, they throw their weight into their heels, they kind of rock back into their butt. And someone that's doing that, that's had an ACL injury, they're just going to use their hips to come out of it, and they're not going to use their quad very much at all. And that's where the mixture between your closed chain and your open chain exercise is important, because you can't miss your quad when you're doing a knee extension. It's the only thing really
Right.
doing that work. But you can miss your quad if you squat and you just throw the weight back into the heel. So it's kind of not only do you squat, but how you squat as well, and making sure that technique is really sound and making sure it matters and making get the most out of every rep. Because I've meet so many people who tell me that they squat, but they basically deadlift, and so they're
Yeah.
they're already deadlifting already. They're already doing hemi curls. They're basically deadlifting their squat, and they're wondering why their quads aren't getting any better, and their knee pain still is a problem. So it's like, well, this is the reason why. So yeah, no,
Yes.
that's really good messaging there, and yeah, thanks for bringing that up, because I think
Yeah,
it's
for
a
sure. And I
key
think as a
attention
trainer,
point.
this was one of the areas where, as a trainer, I did feel like I was held back a little bit by my knowledge because I definitely always tried to not use anything as a crutch early on.
Mm, yeah,
I don't think that that's been the last few years, but I used to think that using a heel elevation, using a slant board is like a crutch for bad mobility, and you have to work on your ankle mobility, not use
yep,
a slant board. But now I'm like, it's okay to use that
yeah,
while you can work on your ankle mobility and use the slant board at the same time and
yep,
try to have them both. And I've actually found anecdotally that using a heel elevation and using a slant board and getting my body more comfortable with the forward shin angle has
yep,
actually translated into what feels like better ankle mobility in my everyday movement because I'm
yes,
just doing it
yep,
more. Um,
absolutely.
so I found a ton of benefits from that.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great to learn things as we get older. So it's
Yeah.
you learn something new every day. That's awesome.
Yes.
Very good. So we're now, I saw a recent video of you taking your first catch on the field, running some lines. Like, where are you at now? Like, yeah, you're about 9 months post-op, thereabouts?
10.
10.
10.
Amazing.
Yes.
And yeah,
And I
so
am at over 90% LSI on hamstrings and quads. So everything
yes.
has, and I've passed all like uh, jump tests and everything like that is, nothing is more than 10% off from side to
Yep.
side. Force production, everything like that has
Yep.
pretty much evened out.
Awesome.
Um,
Well
so
done. That's
with
so cool.
that, thank you. Thank you. Definitely didn't know it would be that hard to get to those numbers. And that was somewhere where, so I hit that 70% at 3 months, and
Yep.
then it took me until 9 months to hit 90%. So that 20% was a grind. And that
Yes.
was the hardest time, I think, was getting like putting in so much work and seeing 1%
Yep.
positive change was very disheartening.
It sucks. It
Yeah.
sucks. Had this conversation with another professional athlete just recently, and they the same story that the first 70% that you get back is the easiest in a way. It's
Mhm.
more painful, but it's often comes back a lot easier. The next 20% over the next 6 months is it's a head. It sucks. It sucks. It messes with your head. One person broke it down beautifully in that even though it's a 1% change over a month is a 4% improvement. And so, you stack those 1% changes every week that you're making over the course of a month, and you stack that on top of another month and on another month, you get that result in the end. So, but the work you put in for that 1% improvement, my gosh, like, yeah, I've never been through it. I can't give you, obviously that real time experience, but obviously hearing your story, hearing others, and hearing that it's a grind and it's a challenge. I think that's really important for patients to hear, but also to clinicians to hear that it's yeah, there's big plateau. Well, it's not plateau so much, but it's just a slower journey through to that 9 month mark. People get out of the blocks well early, but then they kind of just sort of yeah, the rate of progress is much slower.
Right. But then it feels like you're putting in, like for me, I felt like I was putting in more and more and more work and getting less and less and less
Yes.
return. So it's just like,
The
what's
diminishing
happening?
returns, yeah. But that's where you
Yeah.
got to trust the process, right? And that's where, a good team around you, good understanding yourself, good physiotherapists with Lenny and the crew at Champion, like that, those guys will just, keep you accountable and keep you on track.
Yeah. I was talked off of a few ledges for sure,
Yeah.
by my PTs. It was very appreciated. But yeah, so now at this point, I'm 10 months, almost 11 months, out. And I did take my first rep in a game. I once I took my first, I did one drive. I just wanted to run a go route, ran a go route, caught the touchdown. I could have been done, but then I got too
Yes.
excited. And I was like, I'll stay in. And then I
Awesome.
stayed in for a little bit more of the game. And I felt really good during the game. And then I regretted it the next
The next day.
week because it fully set me back a whole week of training. Like
Okay.
I was really swollen. I was really sore. I definitely questioned if I did something
Yep.
like bad, and then I just took a week off and I was fine.
Yeah.
Um, but it was a learning moment, and I had to talk to Lenny and the team at Champion too about like capacity. And just because I hit 90%, just because I passed all my return to sport
Mm.
strength tests and force production tests doesn't mean I can go play a whole game of football.
Yeah.
I haven't done that yet. I haven't
Well,
trained for that yet. We're not there yet.
exactly.
So I had to take a step back. I'm now focused on doing that on my own, not doing it in a game,
Yes.
but running routes on my own, managing my reps, making sure that I'm not overdoing it. So that's where I have currently landed, and I'm much
Awesome.
more comfortable there.
Awesome. Perfect case example of the stuff that we see too. And yeah, it's it, that return to sport criteria and those check boxes we all make people sort of, all the hoops we make people jump through, it often gets taken as, okay, I'm ready to play my next competitive game tomorrow. And,
Yeah.
and I think that's probably a problem with us and our communication is that we probably need to call it something different rather than return to sport tests. It should be like maybe I don't know, return to full training testing or something,
Mm,
something like that. Because that's effectively what it is. You
yeah.
haven't run around for 9 months, 10 months. You haven't been in the training environment to get your body ready for sport. To make, I guess, yeah, to go from here, which is at a higher level, to all of a sudden the demands of sport being up here, it's a pretty big bridge to cross. And yeah, look, it's wonderful that you got through that first game. It felt confident, like, and because that was going to be my next follow-up question, which we'll get to, but obviously the confidence that was there to get along. But yeah, the aftermath is something that you probably didn't expect. But we
Hmm.
kind of, as clinicians, see it all the time when you go from 0 to 100. But for you, it probably didn't feel like you're going to 0 to 100. So, but yeah, I think that's a really important message there is that, yeah, once you sort of get that clearance, still, take that next month, almost like a month at least, to get in the training environment and run your routes and, be in that kind of full training exposure without the game intensity. I think that's that important steps that we need to be taking. So,
Yeah, for sure. And I had been doing that. It wasn't like I hadn't done anything and then went out in the game. Like I had been sprinting. I had been, I'd been practicing a little bit with my team. But even just watching, like Jason took a couple of videos, and even just watching the videos, it was like, yeah, I haven't been aggressively planting my
yeah,
feet like that. Like you go to another level on the field, which for me, I think the confidence to be like, oh, I can do that because I wasn't thinking and I was able to just do it. I think that gave me, I think I almost needed that. I'm not suggesting that you go back to sport early,
yeah,
but I needed to have that moment of like, okay, my knee is good. Like I'm
yeah,
solid. And now I need to up my capacity. I need to train this style of movement more, but I'm okay. Like
yeah.
nothing tragic is gonna happen.
Awesome.
Like, or maybe it will, but like I'm okay.
Yeah, well, you passed your first test. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
What was so you just touched a little bit on psychology, yeah, the psychological part and the mental side of things. Like, how did that kind of back end of your rehab go with you? Did you see this gradual progression in your confidence, or did it all come to head on that field on that day where you kind of took your first touchdown and were like, yes, I'm back. I'm not even feeling my knee. Like, yeah, how did that confidence aspect play out for you over that back end?
Yeah, it definitely wavered, I would say, as I went along. And every new move that we did, it was like, can I do that? Like the first time I did a lateral bound, I was like, can I do that? Or am I going to tear my ACL on the spot?
Mm.
Like you just get
Yep.
so in your head about like, I don't think I can, I don't know if I can do it. But I think the more you have those moments where you're like, oh, okay, I was
Yep.
fine. Everything was fine. I'm ready for this. I've been training for this. Like if you've been taking the right steps, you're gonna be okay. And I think that's what's given me the most confidence is that I've been putting in all the work and this work is leading up to me being okay and me
Yep.
being safe. And so I have to trust that. And so I think that having every little new exercise that we do and being like, okay, I can do it. Okay, I can do it a little bit harder. Okay, I can do it. I can jump a little bit further. Like all of those moments kind of have built into me feeling really confident at this point, and not too scared.
Awesome. That's
Yeah.
great. That's so good. So what's next? Is there trials coming up? Is there, like competitive games coming up? Like it sounds like you're very close. Like what does the next 6 to 12 months look like for you?
Yeah, I have a couple tournaments coming up. So the first one is in November, late November, and that's the goal that we have in mind. So that's what we're kind of like training to prepare me for.
Yep.
And then there's another tournament in January, and there's a combine in December.
Yep.
And that combine is sort of where I could potentially get noticed to get in the invite to trials and start that whole process.
Yeah.
So that's my next goal, and
Awesome.
I know my numbers. I did the combine previously, so I know my numbers. I
Oh, cool.
know what to compare myself to from before, so that'll
Yep.
be really cool to see. And I do actually feel like I will exceed the
Exceed them.
numbers that
Yep.
I had before,
Awesome.
because I didn't train this specifically for for return to sport. I was training football really hard. I wasn't necessarily training in this capacity in this way. For such specific, for cutting,
Yep.
for sprinting, for mechanics of running. I'm a player who has always just been pretty speedy. And so
Yep.
I've just been fast. I haven't like thought about my mechanics. I haven't thought
Got it.
about how I run. So having been breaking this all down and like paring it all back to learning how to walk again has
Yeah.
been really helpful in finding where I was not as efficient. And I think I'm going to be a better athlete because of it.
Awesome. That's good. That's always like every person that I deal with ACL reconstruction is like, Howie, like I want you to be better at the end of this 12 months than what you were before the injury. And that should be the goal for anyone that's wanting to go back for sport. It's not, let's just get you back to where you were before. That we're, let's get you back better. It might take you a few months, and a few games into your system to actually feel like you're at that competitive level. But in terms of strength, power, fitness, agility, all these kind of key qualities, we want you to be better than that, like that,
Yeah.
that state you're in when you led to your injury. So that's amazing. So that's a really good positive mindset for this. Yeah, I can't wait to see how this plays out for you, Lauren. It's going to be fun to watch. Who does assuming that you make the American team, who do you play? Like, is it just an Australian, like an American? I can't recall an Australian team being picked, or is
There
it?
is an Australian
Is
team
there?
actually.
There we go.
So it's going to be flag football will be in the Olympics in 2028. So
Awesome.
yes,
Cool.
and Australia will probably be in it. I think only 6 countries will be in it, but I know
Yep.
Australia actually has a pretty good team. I know some of
Yep.
the players. I met some of them actually in LA
Cool.
recently.
Very cool.
Um, so they have a good team. Mexico and the United States are big rivals.
Yep.
Canada has a great team.
Yep.
But yeah, I think there will be. It's the first time that it's ever been an Olympic sport.
Yep.
And so that was what kicked off this whole idea in our heads was like,
Awesome.
how cool.
How
I've
cool.
always every kid wants to be an Olympian. I was a gymnast.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be an Olympic gymnast growing up. That ship has sailed, but could I make it to the top of the sport? Like, let's try.
Let's
And
try.
I used to say, what's the worst that could happen? I get better at football, but I guess the worst that could happen is I also tear my ACL.
Like anything, it's just a longer journey than most, but the end goal is to, yeah, what's the worst that could be happen? You could, represent, your country. That's
Right.
a fascinating story. Oh, I can't wait to see this one play out. And just for my own, I guess, imagery and mental thing that's going on, like flag football, it's NFL style football, but no tackling, just flags. Is that right? Or
It's
is it?
actually very different.
Yeah,
Very
okay.
different. There's different styles of flag football. So I
Yeah.
do play in one league that's very much like that many players and it's a big like there's a line there's linemen everything like that.
Yep.
The Olympic style that they chose is 5 players versus 5 players, so it's a very small field,
Yep.
very limited players, and it's a much faster
Yep.
game. It's still obviously like throwing and catching a football and scoring a
Yes.
touchdown, and then pulling flags instead of getting tackled.
Yes.
um, but
Should
it's
we?
a very different style. If you see it played, there's a lot more agility, quickness, speed required because there's moves that you have to do to get your hips out of the way of somebody pulling
Mm,
your flags that you
yep.
wouldn't do necessarily to avoid a tackle.
Yes.
So it's just a little bit different.
Yeah. So my son has just started a competition here in Australia. He's 8, called OzTag. So OzTag's a very popular sport here in Australia, and it's like touch rugby league or touch rugby union or touch football. So touch football in itself is a major sport here in Australia. But
Hmm.
yeah, the rugby league or rugby union games where you've got so many people on the field, you pass the ball either horizontally or behind you to get the ball up the field. And if you pass the ball forward, then you have to turn the ball over. So different to NFL where you throw the ball in a forward direction, in rugby league or rugby union, you have to pass it backwards. So OzTag is the same passing backwards rules to move the ball up the court, but you still have the tags on your hips. So he the other day he was like, how can I stop people from getting the flags? He goes, I'll just spin my hips like this, and I
Yeah.
was, it's a fantastic move, mate. And I had no idea that was a thing. Like,
Yes. Yeah, we actually, Jason and I, if anybody's listening who plays flag football, we
good,
have a YouTube video called How to Avoid Getting Your Flag Pulled.
awesome.
And it literally goes over all those different moves. People
That's
do
so good.
dips. They like lower their center of mass so that people go for their hip and then their hip drops and then they
Yep.
keep running. So there's definitely a lot of definitely interesting new skills that people are learning to adapt to this style.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
I love that. And I love the expression that you can sort of take in a game like that. Very good. Well, Lauren, you've been a wonderful well of information. I love your insight. I love your experience, and it's been just such a wonderful chat. I've got a lot out of it, and hopefully, everyone that's listening at home and watching this at a later date gets a ton out of it as well. One last thing go before you go though. What can we do as a profession with your kind of patient hat on rather than your PT hat? What as with your experience as a patient, what can we do as a physical therapist or a physiotherapist profession? What can we do better to help
Hmm.
support the ACL injured patient throughout any stage of their rehab? Yeah, I always am interested to hear people's thoughts on this one.
Oh man, that's a good question. I've been very lucky to have extremely good PT. So it's hard to I would have to nitpick if it was anything like personally that I dealt with.
Yeah.
But I think
But
in
what did they
general, like
do? What did they do good? You know, if you can't think of anything because you had a good group,
yeah,
what did they do well
yeah.
that we could probably
I
model
think that
ourselves off?
setting expectations and not like Lenny was very logical, very practical. He didn't have any like you know, grand promises. He didn't over promise, under deliver. Like
Yeah.
it was very much like setting very realistic expectations without crushing my hopes and dreams, but it was just not like I think I could easily have gotten a lot more down on myself if I had had numbers in my head that I was trying to reach. Like he never gave me markers that I should be at or things like that. Whereas I think that that's common. I do think
Yeah.
that that's something that a lot of people do. And I definitely things that I would read on the internet,
Yes.
like you should be at 90 degrees by this point, you should be at whatever. I think Lenny let it be a lot more personal to me. He didn't put any pressure on those types of things. He just looked at our progress together
Yeah.
and what have we done? Where did we start? Where have we gotten to? And not put pressure on those numbers, even though those numbers matter.
Mm.
So I know it's very hard to balance those two
Yeah.
things, but I think that being a little bit more like with the person that you're with versus like having your, the numbers that you have in your head and all the scenarios that you might expect to be happening, just be with that person and kind of help them see their journey on their own rather than comparing to other people.
Yeah, walk with them, not make them come to you. I guess
Yeah.
is a good analogy there because you're right. I think physios we all have our kind of known targets that we want people to go to, but it doesn't help the person if you're saying that you're a month behind or such and such last week that I saw was already 10 degrees ahead of you or they're doing this and you're doing that. Like that's not at all helpful. And I don't, not everyone's going to be like that. It's probably few people, but it's still important for us to be, walking with the person and kind of meeting them where they're at, but also to giving them that encouragement. So no, it's good. It's good to hear your great experience with Lenny and his team, and yeah, and I think there's some good points there for us as physios that we could do to help our patients.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I had more. I'm glad, I'm lucky that I had a positive experience. But yeah.
yeah,
And I think that I mean, I guess actually we talked about it in the very beginning, but having a good relationship with or good communication with uh, a the surgeon in the
yeah,
beginning and then any personal trainers that they might be working with later.
yes,
That's a huge one that I should have thought of since I'm in that position often.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. Agree.
a personal trainer and a physical therapist should absolutely and need to be working together during the later stages of ACL. And there are areas that a personal trainer is going to know more about, but needs to consult with the PT for like, what are the restrictions? What are the limitations? Like, where do I need to be very careful? And then the physical therapist communicating that information to the PT, to the personal trainer, excuse
Yeah.
me, is super important and super
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah, 100% wholeheartedly agree. I think that's a big limitation, particularly here in Australia with most clinics that people would go to for physiotherapy or physical therapy and their management. It's getting better, but we're still confined by space. So, we might have a physio practice where we might have a gym setting or we might have, like a pretty decent kind of facility. But we're still limited by, our 30-minute appointment times or 45-minute appointment times. Obviously, physiotherapy can be, not that, I think from an expense point of view as well, like there's also those challenges there, but also space. Like if you need to be on field, doing, a bit more aerobic conditioning or anaerobic conditioning or some really on-field changing of direction stuff. Like if you're in a physio clinic that you can't easily get to a field to do a one-on-one session with your patients. That's where having that community of exercise professionals, be it PTs, or here in Australia, we've got exercise physiologists and we've got personal trainers as well. I think it's really bad just to work in a silo here and work by yourself and think that you can be the only person to take someone from, from post-op through to return to sport. It's certainly a community and a family of people. And I really strongly advocate to get the exercise professionals on board through those later stages and mid to late stages as well, because I think they can do a hell of a lot of really great stuff in those middle to late stages, as well as being a support system for those early. So yeah, make some friends with the PT community and the exercise professionals, because I think it's an
Yeah.
important role.
Yeah, for sure. I think the Champion, what they have set up there is a PT clinic and then a sports performance section of their gym. And so I've been working with one of their personal trainers. Even though I am a personal trainer, he sees a lot more post ACL athletes who are trying to return to sport. So I've had him programming for me. His name is Duesh Patel. He's amazing. I call him
Yeah.
Dewey, so weird to say his full name, but um, he's been amazing. And I think as an athlete and as a personal trainer, like just reminding yourself to uh, drop your ego and trust the people who do this
Yeah.
often. And so for me, it was like, sure, Dewey and we've done a lot together. Like we've done a lot of the same certifications and seminars, but he sees post ACL athletes all the time. Like I want him to program for me. I don't need to program for myself. And so just always remembering that we're not always the experts in every area, even if we are a professional.
Yep.
And I think that applies to PTs, to trainers, to everyone is like the more you can network and have a community around you, the better outcomes there will be for everyone.
Agree. Agree. Great messages there, Lauren. Well, that'll do. I think it's very late for you. We had a big day. Probably got to get up early and do some more flag football training tomorrow, or treat some clients. So I'll wrap things up. But Lauren, thanks very much for your time this evening. It's been a wonderful chat. I've learned a lot, as I always do, and I'm sure our community here at the ACL Hub has also learned a lot. So I'm grateful for your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was fun. I appreciate it.
Oh, great, Lauren. Well, to the ACL Hubbers, thanks very much once again for tuning in and listening and supporting. And yeah, stay tuned for the next installment of Athlete Stories on the next edition. Until then, see ya.